Hello, everyone. Welcome to the special International Women's Day collaboration between myself, Krista, and Josephine. So, together we decided that we wanted to highlight and feature women authors of Penang. And not only just highlight, but give them an opportunity to talk about what made them write their books. So, today we have with us Lyn Koay and Harriet Lim. And the both of them will later talk to us a little bit more about their books and more. But before we get into that, Joe, can you just briefly introduce who they are?
Okay, so exciting to be with you amazing ladies today. We're so proud in Penang. We have our own women authors, and both of your books actually very similar in the genre. Kueh Sulin's book is entitled The Unsung Patriot, Memoirs of Wong Ni. It's basically a biography as well as nonfiction and history. Sulin is a young historian, and Harriet, yeah, we're so excited to have your book with us too, The 10th Little Sister. And it's a beautiful biography of your own mother. And Harriet has another book also, a coloring book, which she will share later with us. Yeah, welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Krista.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, so let's start with the question that all of us want to know. How did the idea of your books come about? I would say books because some of you have more than one book, right? So, anyone? Lyn or
I
Harriet?
think I think for myself, right? So being a memoir of founding, the idea actually came from Peter Wong, his son. So he has always wanted to write a memoir of his father, also to preserve the history of what the father has done for the generations to come, not just for the family but Penang. So as for me, I met Wong Ni during the course of my research of post-war Penang when I was a researcher with the Penang Institute. So I wrote this article that was featured on Penang Monthly on Wong Ni. And that was how Peter actually found me. And he wrote me in together and say, hey, let's get a book together and let's start writing it as a memoir, as a book. So I came in to basically write the parts on Penang industrialization, the post-war part, the post-war politics, and the family history came from Peter's side. And that was how we paced it together.
And Harriet?
Yeah, well, I have a stepsister who worked for the United Nations in America for 30 years. And she did so much like walk through landmines and handle refugees and stuff. So I was always so amazed with her stories. And so one fine day I said, nobody in Malaysia even knows who you are, but you're doing so much already for the whole world kind of thing. So I actually wrote an article about her, and it was published in the Star many years ago. And so from then onwards, you have people like Prime Minister Najib calling her in New York and stuff like that. So people started to recognize her. And so she said she was very happy, and she said to me, "Hey, don't let this go to waste. You should sit down and write a book." And I said, "Write a book about what?" Like so I was so blank those days. And then finally, I was watching my mom, and she's forever telling stories about her life, her especially her younger days, and they are pretty intriguing sometimes. So I said, okay, she really does have a very colorful history. I shall start writing about her. So I started collecting stories easily like 10 years ago or something. Yeah.
And how long did the process take?
Um, the collecting of the story was very simple at the beginning, but like Sulin, I'm sure you find that as you go along, you talk to more people and more stories come in, more events that you think are relevant or important. Then you keep adding and adding, and so I was like editing and re-editing my book for maybe 1,000 times over maybe 7, 8, 9 years or so. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
Lyn?
think that's true. I think that's true, Harriet. I agree with you because the more you write, suddenly you realize that how do I paste together all these stories? I
Yes.
think that was the same with Peter and myself. Peter had the initial draft, about his father's family, their background, and his early life, before he actually became a politician. So even when doing that, the process of piecing it together was tedious. And when I came in, I had to fact check the entire draft as well, looking it at the years, the dates, the sequences, the events. So, and especially compiling the pictures as well. So that was quite tedious, which to put in, which not to put in, and all that. So I guess for historical fiction, it is more tedious because you need to match it with the dates and the events that were happening at that point of time to
Yeah.
fit it into the context.
Correct. Because when I was a child, she'll say, "Oh, this happened, and that happened to my sister, and that happened to my brother, and all." But to actually sit down and write the book, you got to make sure it comes along in a correct chronological order, and then so suddenly you got to work out, oh, when did it coincide with the World War II, or did it coincide with the problems in China? They had famines at one point, and where did it come in? When did the communists come in? When her family, some of her family were in China. So I really had to delve into a lot of history myself.
And a lot of fact checking, right?
Yes.
Because you can't be quoting something like in the wrong year or at the wrong
Well, definitely we
place
didn't
or
want
point
to
in
be
time.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tried our best.
Actually, that's amazing. People say history is boring, but then hearing from both of you, it's not.
History is fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah, especially Penang history. There's so many unwritten aspects about it, the life of people, especially women, I feel. So I find that very fascinating about Penang history.
So how long did it take you then, Sulin, for your side?
I guess for us it is slightly faster because Peter had the initial draft already. So I came in to write the chapters on politics, the chapters on industrialization, but it was tough. It took us a year plus, maybe a
Right.
year and a half, because we launched it in January 2015. And the whole process started early 2014. In fact, late 2013, early 2014, when we actually gather the energy to finally, okay, let's just sit down and get it done. So plus the archival research and the materials that I had to dig to find from the archives and so on. So all in all was a year.
I
Yeah.
remember being at the launch in CRC, wasn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I didn't realize it's 7 years ago now.
Yeah.
We're waiting to launch Harriet's book as well.
Yes.
She wrote it during the pandemic.
After the pandemic, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, I want to ask you ladies two questions together. What is the dream you have for your book? Where do you see it going? And how has the whole journey of writing transformed you, if it did?
Tough question, right? Two tough questions back to back.
For me, I actually started to realize that a lot of our younger generation do not understand or even know a lot of our customs and our traditions, which our forefathers brought from China. And so if we don't follow up or try to put it down in writing, I think a lot of it will just die off and will be lost forever. Right? I mean, simple things like how they celebrate certain festive events in the Chinese calendar, things like that. It's already, a lot of it's already lost in China itself. And so we need our younger generation to read up on these and to try to keep some of the cultures going. Otherwise, we will have no more culture in our Chinese people. I'm sure we have different cultures, traditions in the Cantonese, amongst the Teochews, among the Hokkien. It's all different. And so it's very fascinating, actually. So I had to delve into that. I had tried to include a lot of that in my book. Like you would know about the chap gourmet and why a lot of people here will cook the bubur cha cha to eat it. But when I ask all my friends, nobody knows why. Why do they do that? So it's like
Okay, so why do we do that? Yes, Harriet, why your brother very interested. Why do we do that? Because I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, I love bubur cha cha.
Well, that's supposedly the last day of the Chinese New Year, on the 15th day, and so they want to end the new year with the end of the celebrations on a sweet note.
Okay.
I see.
Yeah, so that will be better. Mm.
So your heart is for imparting to
That
the young
trying to
generation.
pass it on to the next generation. Yeah. Also, of course, stories about my grandfather, my great grandfather. They came from China with nothing, and
Mm,
how brave they were, and the women who stood by them was also very
mm.
important,
So
right?
the value of hard work and perseverance as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So
So I
I
think
can see you doing talks, yeah, to young people to impart all this as well. How has the
yes.
journey like transformed you, Harriet?
For myself personally, it was also very fascinating because it was very moving. There was a chapter about my father. He was studying in Hong Kong University for medicine. After his first year, the Japanese took over Hong Kong, and so he was kept as a prisoner of war in Hong Kong University campus itself. And being a medical student, he was asked to help out with the wounded, the sick. And thinking back, when I calculated, he was only 17 years old. I mean, when I was 17 years old, I was know nothing about the world. So for him to go through that, I think was very scary. But he never talked about it, and I never knew until I learned about all this through another friend of his who went through the same thing as him together. And so it's opened up a lot of things about my own parents that I learned, while writing the book, which I think is very, very,
Wonderful.
yeah.
It's a very personal journey for you.
Yes, yes.
And Sulin,
Well, for me, I've always wanted to write or contribute something meaningful in Penang's history. So this book has given me the opportunity to address the existing gaps in the chapters of Penang's post-war history and industrialization. So the reason I say that is that the young generation of Penangites today, they don't even know that industrialization was kick-started by Pauni instead of Chong Yu. I personally grew up with the Chong Yu narrative, while he was the one who brought industrialization into Penang, but the foundational blueprints actually started during Pauni's time, and Chong Yu inherited it. So if you look at the whole story, it's actually a connecting process from one chief minister to another.
wow.
So yeah, so for me that was something really new because that was not the narrative that I grew up with. So my dream for this book is to inspire more young people, young researchers to research and explore more on Penang's history, especially the post-war part, because not many things have been really, really pieced together to make sense out of it. Like for example, Pauni, the blueprint for Penang Bridge, even Komta, has already been in existence during Pauni's time, but
Wow.
Chong Yu brought it to completion. So that was something really very new to me. And that's why I find it inspiring in a sense that I wish that more people would explore deeper into Penang's history. Yeah. And
Yeah,
its
that's
whole
amazing.
economic transformation. Yeah.
Yeah, Krista, that's amazing how similar both their dreams are, isn't it, to
Yeah,
impact the next
yeah.
generation.
As she was talking about the Penang Bridge and Komta, I also recall a story. My grand uncle was actually involved in both his projects. Of
Wow.
course, he has passed on a long time already. He's a very famous engineer, Professor Chin, from
Mm,
University of Malaya.
mm,
So
mm,
they even have a hall named after him in University of Malaya. So
mm.
I guess that yeah, sometimes history really involves a lot of people that we know, and sometimes we don't know
Yeah.
it until history is written by someone.
What's his full name, Krista?
Professor Chin Funky,
Mm,
Okay.
yeah,
Mm,
my grandmother's brother.
mm.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So maybe Suling can write a book about it.
Yeah, that sounds like there's a lot of gaps there. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you,
Yeah.
Sulin? How has this whole writing journey transformed you, do you think?
I think it really trains my discipline because
Mm,
sometimes I'm someone who gets distracted with a lot of different tasks every day, and writing the memoir even together with Peter has basically trained my discipline to really sit down and focus on the research, on
mm,
the writing as a whole, because there when you write you are also thinking, and when you're reading you need to read, you need to think and write at the same time. So it takes a lot of determination, a lot of perseverance as well. And as for me, I think the foundational work and research that I put in for this book has enabled me to deepen my research for my MA thesis with NUS. So my MA thesis actually reassessed the whole of Penang's industrialization from Pauni to Chongyu as a connected
Right.
process. So it's like pursuing the story after the story.
Wow,
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. And I think that many people have been viewing the whole industrialization process as a sectional, segmented sort of process. That means Chongyu's tenure is only confined to what he has done. Pauni is confined to his, but I think you should view it as a connected process. So
Mm,
the initial work for this book has really inspired me to pursue this topic into deeper depths of research.
wonderful.
So then what's the toughest part of writing your books? Was it the research or was it the fact checking? Because I know personally for me, the toughest part of writing my book is editing my book. Going through over and over. It's like so hard, right? Like every word you feel like you want to keep, but you know you can't.
I find writing is very easy. I really love writing. It's so easy for me and I enjoy it. I think the fact checking is the part I just didn't want to make too many mistakes because it's about people's lives. Just had to make sure I get that right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think fact checking is one thing. Another thing is also editing, going through the spelling and everything as well. And the one thing that we struggled with is on the more controversial aspects, because in our book we actually mentioned about, like, for example, the Hatau of 1967. We mentioned events on May 1369 and the revocation of the Freeport status during Pauni's time. So all these things were fairly sensitive even to people today. So Peter actually struggled with it. I think he had to get consensus from the entire family whether to write or not to write. But on the other hand, I, as a young historian, was like being very ambitious. We should be transparent about it. Let history speak for itself. That kind of thing. So we grappled with this here and there, and then the family just decided to, like, okay, just write, and then just get the photos published as well. So I guess for them it was a bold move. For me as well, it was a very bold move. But we struggled with that a lot, whether to write or not to write.
That's so true, actually. Like in Precious Pages, we've published about 23 books now for various authors, but it's the autobiography which someone is struggling to whether to go through or not, because the impact that it will have on relationships and how much do you reveal, and if you don't reveal too much, then it defeats the purpose. So, how did you handle that,
Is
Harriet?
that noise disturbing you?
Yeah, we can hear a little bit.
Sulin, do you think, okay, maybe I'll ask you first, Sulin, what's your advice then for budding authors?
I think is to stay focused and disciplined throughout writing your draft and the entire manuscript. I mean, the imposter syndrome will creep in from time to time, but we have to overcome it and just get it done. And it's very important to find a support group of writers who can journey together with you. I guess for me, I had the privilege on that in Penang Institute, because we have a group of small group of colleagues who are basically working on their own writing projects, personal writing projects. So we usually get together and discuss about it and talk about it. So I guess support of fellow writers is also very important.
Yeah, I think Anna Tan has a book club, and
Yeah,
Wilson
a writer's
also.
like a writer's support group. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. Maybe you can elaborate on imposter syndrome. Some people may not know what that is.
Oh yeah, imposter syndrome. For me, that would be like when you're halfway writing, it's like, can I do it? But the imposter syndrome will come and say, okay, that's enough. No, I think you've done enough. Okay, it's enough. But there's, on one hand, you want to push yourself further. You want to research more. You want to deepen it, and it will always creep in, to intimidate you. At least for me.
Very
Yeah,
true.
yeah. So we
Actually,
need to be overcomers of that, of ourselves.
yeah, some authors have said one of the big problems is that you don't know when to stop editing, right? Because you can go on and on, make it, sorry, more and more perfect. But at some point, you just need to say, okay, this is enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Harriet, going back to that question just now.
Yes, sorry, because there were leaf blowing outside. So, yeah. What question
about
was it?
an autobiography that balance between potentially hurting family members by
I
revealing.
can't really hear you.
Oh, can you hear me clearer now?
Yeah, a bit soft actually. Somehow I don't know why.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's the balance. Can you hear me, Harriet?
Yes.
Yeah, the balance between writing facts which may hurt relationships, but yet revealing enough so that it is an accurate picture of what happened in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I had to be very careful. Yeah.
How do you know which one you want to publish and which part you don't want to publish? Because everything seems to be potentially dangerous once it's put out there, right?
I think for me it was easier than for Sulin because in my case it was about my own family, so I could decide on what I shouldn't say too much about and what not to, so as not to hurt some people's feelings. And so it being my family, I can kind of make a situation seem much milder than it really was. Write it with on a lighter note.
Right.
I could do that, but with Sulin, because it's more factual on her part, she has no choice but to just delve into.
Yeah, I guess it's a balance lah. It's a balance lah. We also try to tone down certain events, certain
Yes,
things.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Write it. The choice of words is important. I'm sure. And how you phrase it. It can sound really mean, but you don't have to sound mean. I just wanted my book to be a happy book at the end of the day. It tells a story, but it doesn't have to rile anybody's feelings up. Yeah.
So Harriet, what would be your advice for budding authors then?
To keep going, whatever it is. I know a lot of people like to write and they want to be famous. I think being famous or making it a bestseller to me is not important. I think you just have to write what's from your heart and get it out there, and whoever reads it and appreciates it, like Sulin says she likes my book, I'm happy, that made me so happy. that kind of thing. Yeah, it's as long as a few people appreciate it, I think it matters. If you don't write the book, nothing will happen in your life, right? So you've got to get out there and get it out there and get it done.
That's what they say, right? You don't want to be in your graveyard and regretting. So you've done it.
Yeah.
Or you could publish it posthumously.
All
controversies, right? All the controversies you couldn't say when you're alive. So we're not alive, you say whatever you want to say.
Part 2.
Yeah, then you can't hear all the positive feedback and the impact, right? Yeah. So for myself, I just want to say a big thank you, Harriet and Sulin. It's been wonderful to hear your stories, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more coming up. We look forward to Harriet's book launch, as well as Sulin.
Do you want to show your book covers? Do you have the book with you? Both of you?
Right.
Do you want to just put it on the screen and so people can see it? Okay. Sulin's and Harriet's. Yay.
They both have that historical look, right?
Yeah, they're very, very classic kind of book, right? Yeah. Yeah. So thank you to the both of you, and really hope to see that more books come up from the both of you, maybe in different genres. But perhaps I think we all like to write the books that we like to write, right? So I guess Sulin, you'll be doing more history, and Harriet more family histories.
Thank you very much for highlighting our local authors. It's a great initiative on both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Together.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any before we leave? Is there any place where people can connect with you, Sulin? Where can people connect with you if they want to find out more about you or get your books?
I think
or
by
even
email
just
is
have a chat
fine. By email is fine.
Yeah.
Okay. By email is fine. So are you able to state your email, or maybe any place that they can find you on social media?
I think on email is fine. My email is fairly simple, koay.su.lyn@gmail.com.
Okay. And Harriet?
Mine is harrietsaw@hotmail.com.
Okay. So whoever has read your book decide to write to you and share their experiences, feel free to do that.
Yeah.
And write to Sulin and Harriet. So thank you both of you for wonderful and meaningful insights into your book writing process.
Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
happy International Women's Day.
Happy
Yes,
International Women's
happy
Day.
Women's Day.
International Women's Day.
Okay, take care, ladies.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.